Hello, I'm Aaron, one of the threat intel advisors here at Feedly Threat Intelligence, and I'm joined today by Andy, one of our senior threat intelligence advisors, to discuss the Microsoft Patch Tuesday report for August, which you can access that for free in the link in the description below. Andy's bringing 8 years, actually over 8 years of experience in cyber threat intelligence and vulnerability management across defense and education sectors, currently serving in the U.S. Army Reserves as a cyber fusion intel officer, providing intelligence support cyber operations. In the report today for the August Patch Tuesday, there's quite a few significant critical vulnerabilities. We're seeing CVE 2025 53767, which is a perfect 10 CVSS score, which is an Azure OpenAI vulnerability. There's also 53766, which is affecting Windows GDI Plus with a 9.8 CVSS score, and then multiple Azure services vulnerabilities. But there's one vulnerability that's particularly concerning from a deployment perspective, which is CVE 2025 53786, which is the Exchange Server Hybrid Deployment vulnerability with an 8.0 CVSS score. Andy, that's a lot. But what vulnerabilities should teams be aware of this month?
Yeah, so just outside of that list, the only one I would bring up is the CVE 2025 50165, as this is a JPEG image processing vulnerability. So essentially, threat actors could attach an image to an email or something, and then as Microsoft Graphics component, then processes this particular image. Hypothetically, an attacker could execute this code remotely. So definitely a very interesting one. I'm curious to see if this would be weaponized anytime soon.
Gotcha. Looking at CVE 2025 53786, it's especially interesting because CISA issued an emergency directive 25-02, which gave federal agencies until Monday, August 11th, to mitigate the flaw. The vulnerability affects Exchange Server 2016, 2019, and subscription edition and hybrid configurations. What makes this Exchange hybrid vulnerability particularly concerning from a defense perspective, especially given that Shadow Server found over 29,000 unpatched servers still exposed globally?
Yeah, definitely in light of recent cyber attacks on government and military entities, this vulnerability definitely poses a major risk. It definitely allows for attackers to be able to move between on-premises Exchange servers and move that to escalate or rather pivot to cloud environments. So this definitely breaks the trust boundary between on-premise and the cloud environment. So definitely patching this this definitely underscores and stresses the need to have more proactive patching.
Hmm. Yeah, this is especially fascinating because it seems to stem from the April 2025 hotfix that was initially released as a non-security update, but then Microsoft later identified it as addressed with a serious security issue. An attacker with on-premises Exchange admin access can escalate privileges in the connected cloud environment without leaving detectable audit trails. How does this highlight the challenge of securing hybrid environments?
Uh, I mean, this definitely shows that the cloud environment can be impacted by those on-premise services. So security teams definitely need to start thinking about the two different environments as kind of a holistic view, right? A singular place.
Gotcha. And moving on, would you consider CVE 2025 53767 particularly alarming, given its perfect 10.0 CVSS score and the fact that it's also server side request forgery vulnerability in Azure OpenAI that could compromise cloud infrastructure with scope change?
Yeah, but the 10 CVSS score is definitely a huge red flag. However, according to Microsoft, no customer action is required to resolve this at this time. The 10 score does come from, like you said, the SSRF vulnerability, and it's unauthenticated network-based attack with a low complexity. So, and this can potentially bypass authentication and could lead to compromise of cloud infrastructure. So, its ability to change scope, right, definitely increases its CVS score. So, this definitely could create a much larger, we'll call it blast radius, but definitely a very important vulnerability to take note of.
The report also shows a concerning trend with multiple Azure cloud service vulnerabilities. How does CTI contribute to patch prioritization for these cloud first vulnerabilities beyond just flagging them on Patch Tuesday?
Definitely first by identifying any exploitation, right? So using those sources, the intel sources that intel analysts have, be it closed or open source, just personally identifying those exploitation risks. From there, helping to prioritize efforts of patching remediation by determining, the business impact, determining what we call in the military key terrain or critical assets in the private sector, right? So um, once you get all that together, then providing what are the most likely threat actors and TTPs that would then be used, right, based on the knowledge around those assets, which threat actors and what TTPs might be leveraged in order to exploit these particular vulnerabilities.
Hmm. And are there any patterns or patching strategies that you've seen successful teams use to stay ahead of threats that are targeting both traditional Windows infrastructure and cloud infrastructures, especially with this hybrid attack surface that we're seeing in this August vulnerability list?
Um, I've been talking to a lot of customers, and recently, there's a lot of movement towards this risk-based patching strategy, which really does kind of like what I was talking about before, is identifying critical systems and then identifying, how threat actors might get to that particular thing. So it's not just considering CVSS scores, but also the criticality of those systems and countermeasures that might already be in place.
Gotcha. And so, what's one pitfall that you see VM teams run into during Patch Tuesday when they're dealing with vulnerabilities like this one, the 2025 53786, that affects hybrid deployments spanning both on premises Exchange server and cloud services? And then, how can they avoid that?
Again, I think this is I touched on this a little bit earlier, right? It is treating these two environments as two separate entities, right? While yes, logically they are, but they one can impact the other, right? So teams definitely need to adopt a holistic view of their more hybrid environments and look at those, address those vulnerabilities across those different environments and systems.
Hmm. So, given your background in automation and intelligence, how can VM teams better integrate threat intelligence feeds to prioritize these vulnerabilities, particularly when we're seeing vulnerabilities that span traditional infrastructure, modern cloud services, these hybrid approach, the critical authentication mechanisms all in one patch cycle?
Uh, Obviously, I would say safely, but in all seriousness, though, VM and CTI teams definitely need to be in lockstep. We've been like automating ingestion of threat intel feeds or uh, any of this type of intelligence, so that they can move beyond the basic CSS scores, right? So we can move to that risk-based prioritization strategy, patching strategy, so that they can start looking at incorporating the data of what are the active exploits, the attacker CTPs, and the criticality, so that we can move towards that risk-based patching strategy.
Hmm. And in your experience, what's the ideal relationship between vulnerability management teams and threat hunters when dealing with these privilege escalation vulnerabilities like the one that we're looking at here, 53786, that could enable silent lateral movement from on premises to cloud environments?
VM teams can definitely help threat hunters focus their efforts by providing the essential information on the assets that might be impacted, right? So, because of their ability to view the entire network, the network scans, and all the other scan details that are available to vulnerability managers, uh, they're just able to really point those threat hunters in the right direction. So definitely prioritization of efforts.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, thanks for all that info, Andy. I know that was a lot. And thanks everyone for joining us for the breakdown of the Microsoft August Patch Tuesday report. If you want to explore the report further, you can access them for free. So everything that we showed today is free, available in Feedly for you to check out. Just click the link in the description below. Thanks for watching.